Hey everybody, how you doing? It is Jesse Vasquez coming at you from Sacramento. We are in the end of 2020, the year of pandemic and everything else. Um, yeah, we're I'm having a guest today who's a dear friend of mine, an artist, curator, activist, and educator. Her name is Aida Lizalde, and she is excellent. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We have a lot of conversations. They generally, I don't know, you never know where they're going to go, but they always center around something that has to do with social justice and art and those intersections. Um, yeah, so like I mentioned, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. It looks like California is going to go on lockdown. Well, my zone is going to go on lockdown tomorrow night, starting around 5 or midnight or something like that. So you know what we're up to. We are still doing the mask thing, keeping distance. Our best information is that this thing is airborne and it's more likely for you to catch it if you are indoors with people who have it for an extended period of time. So, you know, when you're out shopping, doing all the stuff that you got to do to maintain, keep your distance, keep your mask on, and wash your hands. I mean, you should be washing your hands anyway, and that should be a habit. But right now, everybody has that hand sanitizer. Use it, you know, wash everything up. And we'll see how we get through this. I've mentioned this a lot of times. This show is called Essential for a reason. We're trying to keep focus on what it means to have a society. What is the essence of a society? I think we're all so soul searching that a little bit right now. You know, some people think it's commerce. Some people think it's eating. Some people think it's getting haircuts. We all draw our line in a different place. And, you know, being in a society means that we have to respect those lines. We try to accommodate all those lines. I want people to get a haircut. You know, I'm the one that has to look at you. But I don't want you to die doing it. I don't want you to kill your grandparents to look good. So, you know, stay informed, talk to people, see what everybody's doing for best practices, and see how you can work around stuff. You know, there's always some way to coordinate with other people. You know, have them do your shopping, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of control the flow of your life as best as you can. Anyway, I wish you all luck, and I wish all of us luck in getting through this thing. And yeah, we'll see what these next phase brings us. You know, we're going to go through Christmas on lockdown, it looks like. We'll see. We're here for it. Anyway, I'm talking today about the intersection between the words, the concept and the meaning of the word essential and art practice. Art always has an element of critique involved in it. Most artists have developed a very strong inner critic, you know, that can turn on you. It can go both directions. A lot of times it's helping you make your work stronger. It's helping you cut out the bullshit in your work and, you know, keep it crucial, keep whatever it is you're doing, if it's music or visual art, keep it on point and sharp and make sure it's communicating what it's supposed to, or just communicating. You know, like sometimes we don't have a direct point to make with our art. It just has to speak. It has something that needs to get out. Aida is one of those people that had that element very strongly in her work. And from the very first time that I saw her, I met her when she was an undergrad at UC Davis. I don't even know how long it's been now. I think 4 years, maybe 5. She did this piece when Donald Trump got elected. And she hit me up real quick. I'm the shop tech at the Davis Art Department. And she hit me up and said she needed to use the studio. It was available. So I said, yeah, sure, let her in there. And a couple weeks later, she's editing this piece. It was just knocked me out. But it was her response to the election of Donald Trump here. And her experience as an immigrant, as an artist, as a Mexican, is pretty unique. And she put all of that into this one piece. I don't even think there was any words. I don't think she said a thing, but all of that got in there and more. And, you know, I've watched the piece a few times now, and it's just the power of it only grows. And yeah, so I called her, I hit her up, you know, and just wanted to get her thoughts directly on this experience that we're all going through right now. So that said, I'm going to bring her in here. Oh, there we go. Hello, are you talking? Nope. Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Hi. Right on.
I'm
Thanks
so
for being
excited.
here. Yeah, thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Thank you for inviting me. I think it's been such a long time since we had a conversation, so I was so excited just about that part, and I'm excited also about like the very moving things and topics that you're bringing in, which made me really think about things when I read some of your notes. So and things about things that I'm going through and everything. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, right on. So this summer, one of the things that you did, I think it was in September, um,
Mm-hmm.
you actually did a residency, and you went to Mexico City to function on that. So everybody here is in lockdown, everyone's freaking out, and you hopped on a plane and went to Mexico to make art.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, definitely it was like a very selfish thing that I did. And I did it like the safest way that I could have possibly done. But I had this opportunity to go to this residency in Mexico City, and I had just left my full-time job to become like a full-time artist, and I don't have a studio space here. And I work outside usually, and I was making this paper. I started making this like handmade, like recycled paper out of like paper pulp that from like random scraps of stuff. And like it was really hot in the summer, and then we had the fires, so the smoke was really terrible. So basically I just couldn't really work. I couldn't make any art because I couldn't really spend a long time outside because of my health. And I had this opportunity come to Mexico City, and I talked to the Casa Lu owner, and we kind of came up with a plan for like the COVID thing, and I was going to be one of only two residents. So it sounded like safe enough for me to be able to go there. So I went, and I spent 5 weeks in Mexico, and it was. Oh, am I still there? Oh, yeah. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience because not only did I get to take a break from like the fires that were happening here, and like a mental and emotional break from the protest, because I'd been attending the protest and just like watching what was happening, and that was really heavy on me and on a lot of people. And I had the privilege to go and kind of take a step back from that and see it from a different perspective from another country, and also process a lot of that stuff that was happening. So when I was in Mexico, I was working on a body of work that then I exhibited at Axis Gallery, and it was all related to the relationship between the United States and Mexico, and then just kind of like the relationship between the way that we process information in the media. And I was just like a body of work that was totally new. It was all made out of recycled materials and handmade paper. But it was a really good experience being at Casa Lu. It was pretty safe. Um, and Mexico had a very different way of dealing with the pandemic. I don't know if you have any like specific questions about it, Jesse. But
Well, what name like one of the differences that you saw there versus here?
yeah, well, I mean, like there were so many different things that made me feel like it was safe. So, and of course, this is Mexico City, and there are a lot of different places in Mexico where like the governments and the locals and everybody was dealing with it differently. But just from the architecture to what it felt like, and you saw walking down the street was different. So the architecture, meaning like there's in Mexico the climate's slightly different, so nobody has ACs. And the buildings are made in such a way that they're so airy and big, and there's like windows everywhere, and there's natural light everywhere, and there's like white spaces. And of course, not all the architecture is the same, but I was staying at Casa Lu, which is like the house that it's located is like a mid-century style home. So they had like huge windows everywhere that were just like open, like wide, like common shared spaces, lots of plants everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was, so I felt good for that in terms of like the airflow, etc. But also like walking down the street in Mexico, you would see people walking, and even though they were outside, everyone was wearing a mask. Like every single person I saw on the neighborhood, whether they were running in the park or walking their dog or getting groceries, they were wearing their mask.
Yeah.
Which was incredible. That wearing a mask in Mexico was not a political thing whatsoever. It was just like, people are going to get sick, wear a mask, put it on. That's it. There
Yeah.
were places that people didn't wear them, and I asked around, and they were like, it's just because they're like, there's ignorance and etc. And I don't really know what, but I know it wasn't a political thing. It wasn't like, oh, my individual rights. But I think one of the reasons why is because Mexico City has seen so many different natural disasters, like the earthquakes, terremotos, and just like, it's such a compacted city that like when the swine flu happened, that was really terrible. They're a city that really knows how to kind of come together when there's something terrible happening.
Yeah.
I mean, in some things they don't, like, feminicidio and like, corruption or whatnot. But when there is something that eminently affects everyone, they really do come together.
Yeah.
And I saw that also because as you walk down the streets, there were just posters everywhere. Like, there's sweet paste everywhere that were telling you stay at home. And there were government like designated posters that were put everywhere that were saying stay at home and save a life. Your haircut's not worth someone's life. Like, even smarky, like, funny things.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to have a cape to be a superhero. You just stay at home, or like just wear your mask. One of them that I really like was one that just said solidarity. It just had somebody and they were wearing a mask, and it just said like solidarity. And I was just like, yes, like, there's such a big difference between the idea of I'm wearing a mask to take care of everyone, rather than you're not going to make me wear a mask as my individual rights. Like, that's such a discrepancy between the feelings. And it really is like like such a different thing to really observe. Like, it's solidarity. It's like, you wear it so you don't get sick, of course, but you wear it so other people don't get sick.
Right. I made the comparison a little while back to like wearing your seatbelt, or stopping at a stoplight. Those are both things that are going to benefit you, but they're also going to benefit everyone around you. There's just certain things you do when you're in a society, if you're in a society.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating here that it does seem like a lot of people don't consider themselves part of American society. They think like they have this separate status or separate standing. And the virus isn't really checking for that kind of stuff,
Yeah, and I mean, I was talking to you about like the Protestant ethic before and all these other things. Like, there's cultural differences that are already like underlined so deeply in the way that the society is structured in the United States for individualism. So when you have a society that is structured so that people are like individualistic rather than like collaborative, you're gonna have things like this happen. When people use the word socialism as like if it's like some fucking crazy evil. Sorry, I just said a bad word. Not realizing that like maybe sometimes people aren't really referring to socialism as like this like structure that can turn into a totalitarian rule. They're talking about like the well-being of everyone in a society. And that for that to be scary to somebody is really strange to like in my brain. I'm just like, how are you scared for the well-being of the society? And it's just like, people have this very reasonable fears for that because they're like, well, then then these governments are going to take advantage of us. But it's just like, fool, they already are. Like, what I mean? Like, it's like the corporations already are. So like,
I don't know what you call America right now, like properly. Like what are we? We're like I don't even know what this place is, but I do know that I couldn't leave my house for 2 months in California because the air was poison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we can't go out right now. We can't socialize like we want to because there's a virus. We're going to get a vaccine pretty soon. We're going to have things to combat this thing. That's not even going to touch the fact that our air is unbreathable.
Yeah.
California, you know what I mean? Like, whatever.
And that you had a disease that affects your breathing, like a pandemic that affects your breathing. Well, like, it's like literally the earth was trying to suffocate us.
We're in so deep, and it's fascinating that people can turn it into some kind of political thing rather than something that we all have to fight against. Like you said, I think that is very fascinating in Mexico that the fact that they've been through so many natural disasters together, I'm sure they have a different sense of community and different sense of what society actually means, when you're trying to dig survivors out of a rubble of a building. We were there right before the pandemic hit, right before lockdown happened. And, you could still see signs of the earthquake, this building
Yeah.
cracked, the sidewalk is all in upheaval some places.
Yeah, but also maybe there's other things there's a lot of other things that I was thinking about in terms of like how is this society in Mexico City structured versus how our society is structured here, like Sacramento, for example, because you have a city that is probably more ancient than we even know.
Yeah.
The Mexico City has been a city for, before Columbus, probably before the Aztecs.
Yeah.
It's been like there's been like so many layers of peoples that have lived and congregated in that region for so long that had buildings and commerce and like all kinds of stuff. So I think for me to like walk around the city and see colonial architecture and then mid-century architecture and then go see these ruins that are from like pre-Columbian times all in the same place also kind of makes you think, are there passed down genetic genetic traits that allow these people to like congregate and live in this space that have been living here for like centuries and centuries and centuries that unite them? And there's like a plaza that of Tlatelolco that I went to where there was like this big sign that was really beautiful for me because they were talking about like this battle that happened in Tlatelolco where, and they were talking about like when Hernan Cortés basically like finally like conquered, they won this battle against the Aztecs, and they were saying, but nobody really won. Like the sign said something like no one won. This was like the creation of the mestizo race. This wasn't like this war that one person won and one person lost. This was like this creation of the mestizaje.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, like people have questions about mestizaje because it does cause like erasure of like indigenous cultures that are there, et cetera, et cetera. But it is a thing. Like mestizaje is a thing. It didn't exist, so you can't just deny it. And I feel like it was a really interesting thing because of this like concept of cycles of like, you never really have one society just end. That never really happens. It doesn't just like end. There's like creations of new things, and there's like all this different stuff. So in bringing that back here, it's like we are such a new nation, and we have all these different people from everywhere in the world coming into this region, but we also have these like indigenous cultures that were already here that have left, like that have like not left like they're left, but they've left their spirits in the land. They've left their cultures in the land, like they've left their spirits in like the nature that surrounds us, and then you have all this like overlap of all these other cultures. And I think it's just so confusing. It's also really beautiful. And then you have capitalism on top of all those layers. So
I just started with my my nature photos. I started naming them for the Native American names for different places. It's just I'm photographing out of rivers or the Grand Canyon, and when you try to find the names that the cultures that grew, that lived there before we got there, before America got there, they named themselves for the color of the water in that place, and you can just tell with the naming, even just the naming structure, the way that they went about naming things, the relationship was entirely different than what we have. So I'm trying to do that. The research is a little bit hard on the internet, but I got some tricks from Facebook the other day. People stepped up and helped me out.
Yeah, I think I saw that post. That's really interesting. I mean, I want to learn a lot more about like the people that were here. I also wanted to learn more about myself, and I feel like even though it was risky for me to go to Mexico, that's always something that really connects me with myself and it grounds me. And it, it also decenters me in some ways, because obviously there's a lot of like trauma from being an immigrant. There's a lot of trauma from leaving a place and coming to a new place. Like there's like their family there, and how you feel disconnected from your family there, and how that like feels like it's almost like this grief, and like you don't know what to do to feel more connected. And then you feel like you're so far away, so like making the efforts just like harder, like day to day, than to just like go see your grandma, like drive over there and see her. So it's like, but then there's also like, what are the reasons why your family left? Like, why did your family leave? Like, that's really painful. Like, for a family to have to leave where they leave everything they know is like a very painful thing. So those things are hard, but also it's good to process them. And going back there is like a very interesting experience for me, because I'm forced to process those things also while enjoying life there, because it's very enjoyable to be in Mexico.
Yeah.
Just like generally, like if you've been there, you know what I mean. But it's like it's just very enjoyable. Yeah. It's like you're just like, oh, I love this place. Like, why can't I just live here? Like, it's just like beautiful in so many different ways. And yeah, like I think that leaving there was like a grounding practice, and I feel like a lot of us are trying to find these grounding practices right now.
Yeah.
And it's just like a hard time. We have to find them somehow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, one of the grounding practices is service, and I know I have a friend. We all have a lot of friends, but I have a friend who made my mask.
Heck yeah!
The PS.
I have a sister that made my mask.
No,
I was showing Jesse.
I like that one.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's got this elastic in the back so that you don't get your ears all tired, and then it ties at the bottom, and it has like this little like wire. Everybody go find my sister on Instagram. She makes masks. I'm sure everybody knows somebody that makes masks. But
what's her name?
Her name is Andrea. She has an Instagram that's called Goblin and Witch, and she is like a sewing expert and also fixes sewing machines. And sells them, and she's just like knows how to make anything and everything. She's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Art out here saving lives.
Yeah, she's definitely a much better artist than I am. She doesn't do it for her career because she doesn't want to, but yeah.
She's a little more sane, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, she's a little, definitely. Yeah.
Very cool. So you're working on something now that we were talking about earlier, where you're reaching out to seniors. Is that what's happening?
Oh, it's so I'm not directly reaching out. I wish I could. That'd be great if I could give them this. But it's a collaboration between a meal program that delivers meals to seniors and the Crocker Museum in Sac State. And basically what they did is that they contracted a bunch of artists to produce artwork so that this artwork can be gifted to seniors during the holidays. And that's, it's to like, help them feel part of society and welcome, and like they have someone out there to just give them a gift. But the artwork is designed with me in collaboration with a group of teens. So they designed this like really beautiful, like kind of like bunch of different dishes, and I put them together into kind of like a table spread. So I met up with them through Zoom, and we had this kind of conversation about community and food and artwork, and how food can bring people together, and how food can also represent cultural diversity and solidarity. And of course, we just had, we just went through this like holiday of Thanksgiving, and a lot of people spend that by themselves, and a lot of people don't celebrate it because because you don't support it, or but you maybe still gather with your family or whatever. So I think that they were inspired by that. And they represented different foods. There's a bowl of rice, and then there's like a big pot of gumbo, which I love. It has little shrimp in there. So they sent me the sketches. Those sketches are their sketches. I didn't change them. I just digitized them, and I added a few different things. And one person did like a turkey or a chicken. And then I really like the one where it's like handing over the corn. That one was really nice because we were talking about what are some foods that we all kind of have in common. And I think that corn was definitely one of those foods that we all have in common.
Yeah.
And it also has such a like cultural like history for me, obviously, because it's like, maize is like the food of the gods, like that's where like half of me comes from, I guess. So Yeah, they made this beautiful thing, and we're gonna screen print it on handmade paper, and then it's gonna be taken to the Crocker, and they'll add some information about the artist, etc., and then they're gonna distribute it to the Illinois folks.
Is that tacos in the bottom corner?
Yep, there's some tacos right there with little mustaches. They're very cute.
Excellent.
Yeah, and this is gonna be in black and white. This just has like a little bit of color, just because I wanted to see like the different tones. But it'll be printed on handmade paper on black ink.
Right on.
And
yeah,
I'm making 225 of them. So yeah, definitely not getting paid enough for making that many. But it's
God bless you. You're doing God's work, literally.
I'm not doing God's work. I'm doing work.
Yeah. Wow,
that's the work.
Yeah, that's a debate we can have later.
Yeah, but you had like, I want to kind of go back to like some of the things that you sent me when you emailed me a few topics, because there was one about like how artists are like the least essential people. Like
that was a survey that they put out, and it's fascinating to me because immediately we all went on lockdown. What's everybody doing? You're watching Netflix for 12 hours a day, and all that stuff, and somehow it gets classified as art. It gets outside of the realm of art. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it in like a more like, I was just questioning like what is the most and the least essential, like what is the hierarchy and what does the hierarchy mean and where does it come from? So I think that like I was just thinking about like that hierarchy of employment, like who's the most important person, like like I guess like right now it would be like healthcare workers that are treating patients with COVID, right? And then it'd be like
Jeff Bezos is the most important.
Yeah, and I mentioned that I was like, if you made a hierarchy of like every single person who is in the workforce right now, and it's like from top to bottom, where would Jeff Bezos be? How important is for him to exist so that we can function as a society?
Right.
And then I was thinking like, is he below artists or is he above artists? Like, you know what I mean? So it was just it was a comparison that I thought was really interesting. And I guess it was just kind of about thinking about like the structure of our society and what things are needed and what things are not needed.
Yeah, hierarchy is definitely, it has a place for sure, but that place is not every place. And that's kind of how I feel right now. Like we have all these people that are deemed essential, which means that they are central to this society functioning, and they're not getting hazard pay. They didn't get any raises. They're not being tested every week. There's all kinds of stuff like that, and yet they're called essential. So I'm like, well, what does
essential mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like
in that context.
I also question that, like I do think that people that are working should be taken care of, but I also think that everybody else should be taken care of, and it's one thing that I was just really thinking about in terms of like that experience of working with the Humanizing Deportation project that I did a couple of years ago after I graduated, which was that it was just, there was a point where I had an experience that made me realize that I'm not more important than other people. And it was related to me being an immigrant, because I was down in Mexico and I was interviewing and helping people tell their stories through video. And these people had been deported back to Mexico for whatever reasons. And, like if you've seen statistics of deportation, most people that get deported are men. And a lot of people that get deported is because they committed some sort of like crime, or they had some sort of like criminal history. So when I was down there, I got to really get to know and talk and hear the stories of people who had been like gang members and who had like, maybe stabbed somebody and like sold drugs. And it's just like, but I also heard about the reason, like, how they immigrated and how some of them were refugees and they were brought in when they were so little, and then they got kicked out of their house when they were 12 years old and they had to live in the streets. So it's like, I really got to know a lot of these people and their stories. And it made me realize that, like I am not a more valuable person in the world just because I didn't sell drugs in the streets and didn't, just because like I went to college and I graduated. So it made me really question DACA, actually. Like DACA, if you don't know, is like Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is like something that when the Obama vetoed into power, which allowed undocumented children who were brought here by their parents when they were not like over 18 years old. It allowed them to get a work permit and to get licenses to drive and etc., and allowed them not to be deported.
Yeah.
So it really made me question DACA. Although DACA, I am so proud that people have been fighting so hard to keep DACA, and I feel like it's been so helpful for a lot of us and our families. It really made me question that, because I feel like when it comes to immigration, there's like this there's this pinnacle of like what you should be if you're an immigrant. You should be like this perfect not you wouldn't be a perfect citizen because you're not a citizen. You're like, you know, another thing. But you know, you have to be this perfect person in society. You have to like pay taxes. You have to go to school. You have to never commit a crime. You have to be like a business owner or like, you know, a hard worker, and you have to work like extra hours and get paid enough. Like,
I don't
you
know
have to
any
do
Americans
everything perfect.
with that qualification.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody that really like fits that qualification. Like, people, we strive for it, but I realize I'm not more valuable than Manuel, this guy that I met, who, you know, had been deported, who had a criminal history, who had like face tattoos, who had, you know, like pain and trauma and also happiness and creativity. And I was just like, I don't, just because like what I could put myself through it, and it's something I have to keep reminding myself, and it's something that relates to now. It's like, who is more valuable in society now? Nobody's more valuable in society. Everyone should be taken care of. We should everybody should be, we should all be getting paid to stay at home. Yeah.
No matter what you do, like even if you work at a recycling center or whatever, like that is essential to your life, to conducting and, you know, providing for yourself. And
yeah.
Yep. I'm glad we're focusing on it. We'll see.
Everybody should be getting paid to stay at home right now.
Yes. But we're not there yet. Societal evolution takes a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And in terms of artists, see all the people that are struggling with mental health, like, you know.
I think that's a whole other show.
Yeah, that's a whole other show. But one quick thing that I was saying earlier is that, you know, like we had this revolution happening in the summer where people were uprising and were saying enough is enough, and they were like marching for Black Lives Matter. And at the same time, we had all these businesses that wanted to keep being businesses and keep making a profit and surviving, and they boarded up their facades, and, you know, but they also wanted to attract customers and, like, you know, be supportive of BLM, whether it was for profit or not. So what do? Like, they bring all these artists to make all this art on those boarded up spaces and to uplift the street that looks like deserted and post-apocalyptic. You know, like, that's what you do. You bring in artists. And it's essential to have art around, not only because it uplifts us and questions society and describes things that are undescribable, but also because for us right now, it has a lot to do with representation. Like, art is one of the ways that we're trying to achieve cultural diversity, like showing ourselves out there. Like, you know, how many like images of Black bodies did you see around that you had never seen before, like lately? And that is essential for our liberation, and that comes through artwork. So
well, I appreciate the work that you're doing there in that area, and always have been. Let me see, hold on. Put that up again. So everybody should go to that website and see what Aida's been up to. The performances are very cool. The one that I was referencing was is in there with the cake. It has some cake imagery on there. But yeah, thank you very much for being on here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing this. And I don't know, I guess we'll talk soon. We'll Zoom with each other soon.
We should. I've been so isolated, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's not good for me. It's not good for everybody. Text your friends. Call your mom.
Call your mom. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We're going to roll this out. And thanks to Aida again. Take care, and I will see you Sunday.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.